The hospital hallway was a quiet world of soft beeps and the sharp, clean smell of medicine. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered just a little, casting a cold glow on the white walls. Ethan sat on a hard plastic chair, his small feet dangling high above the polished floor. He clutched his backpack, a familiar weight on his lap, his knuckles white. Across from him was a closed door. He stared at it, afraid to blink, afraid he might miss something. Behind that door was his mother. That morning, she had tried so hard to pretend everything was normal. She brushed his hair, packed his lunch, and gave him the usual reminder not to forget his homework. But her face was pale, and her smile was a fragile thing that didn't quite reach her tired eyes. When the nurses came, she knelt down in front of him, her hands wrapping around his. "Be brave," she whispered, her voice a soft promise. "I'll be right here when you come back." Ethan managed a small nod, his throat too tight for words. He watched as they wheeled her away, the door swinging shut with a soft click, sealing him in a world of waiting. Now, all he could do was wait. The minutes stretched, each one feeling heavier than the last. Doctors with serious faces strode past. Nurses murmured in hushed tones. Somewhere down the long corridor, a baby cried, the sound echoing in the stillness. A clock on the wall ticked with an unnerving loudness, each second a slow, deliberate reminder of how time crawls when you're scared. He hugged his backpack closer, burying his face in the worn fabric. His mother packed it for him every single day, even on the mornings she felt her worst. Inside were his books, his lunch, and a little note she always slipped into the front pocket. It always said the same thing. Asterisk, have a good day. I love you. Asterisk, he thought of all the nights she'd stayed up with him, helping him with his homework, even when she was so exhausted she could barely keep her eyes open. He remembered the way she'd always smile and say, "I'm fine," even when he could see the pain she was trying to hide. Now, she wasn't saying anything at all. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut. His hands trembled as a small, simple prayer formed on his lips. Not perfect, just honest. "Please," he whispered to the empty hallway, "let her be okay." Just then, the door he'd been watching for what felt like an eternity finally opened. A doctor stepped out. His face was unreadable, serious, and in that split second, Ethan's heart plummeted. But then, the doctor's expression softened, the lines around his eyes easing into something kind. "The surgery went well," he said, his voice gentle. Ethan hadn't he even realized he'd been holding his breath until it rushed out of him in a shaky sigh. The weight on his chest lifted, and his eyes filled with hot, stinging tears. He wiped them away quickly, a real smile, his first real smile all day spreading across his face. Later, a nurse told him he could see her. The room was a maze of machines and quiet, rhythmic beeps. His mother looked so small lying in the big hospital bed, her skin still pale, with tubes carefully placed around her. For a moment, the fear returned, cold and sharp. Then her eyelids fluttered open. When she saw him standing there, her face lit up with a weak but beautiful light. "There's my brave boy," she whispered, her voice raspy. Ethan walked closer and gently took her hand. It felt warm, real. "I was scared," he admitted in a small voice, "but I stayed strong. For you." She managed a weak smile and squeezed his fingers. "I knew you would." The days that followed were a slow, steady climb toward hope. Every afternoon after school, Ethan would make his way to the hospital. He'd do his homework in a chair in the corner of her room, sometimes reading his history chapter out loud just so she wouldn't feel so alone. Even when she was sleeping, he would talk to her, telling her about his day, about his friends, about anything and everything. There were good days and there were hard days. On the hard days, when the machines beeped a little faster, or the doctors spoke in low, serious tones, the fear would creep back in. But then he would remember her words. Be brave, and he would take a deep breath and hold her hand a little tighter. One evening, as he was telling her about a funny story from school, she laughed. It was a soft, tired sound, but it was the most beautiful thing he had ever heard. "You didn't skip school, did you?" she asked, her eyes twinkling. Ethan shook his head seriously. "No, you always said education comes first." A look of pure pride washed over her face. "I'm so proud of you," she said. Those words became his shield. Weeks later, the doctor came in with a big, genuine smile. He said the words Ethan had been waiting to hear since that first, terrifying day. "You can take her home." As they walked out of the hospital together, sunlight streamed through the windows, filling the long hallway with warmth and light. Ethan glanced back at the cold plastic chairs, the silent doors, the place where he had learned just how strong fear could be. But he had also learned something else. He had learned that love was stronger. He realized that courage isn't about not being afraid, it's about being terrified and still choosing to be strong anyway. And sometimes the very smallest hearts carry the greatest courage of all. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that inspires.